Good morning, Majo John Madden from the harbor section of Veracruz, Mexico. Big commercial harbor out there. We will have to put up with the noise from a boat over there that is idling now, and they makes frequent trips out to the naval vessels that are parked out there. So we may hear him motoring across the harbor here. I have a story, I have a whale of a story, and I'm going to do it in a way I've never done it before, to tell the story of the dogs of El Diamante. I spent the entire summer of 23 broken down mentally, physically, and emotionally, and car-wise in El Diamante, which is a 400-person pueblo just a few miles outside of Vega de Alator, which is about a 3,000-person city right along the coast, 2 hours north of Veracruz. I arrived in El Diamante 2 days after the incredibly traumatic loss of two important dogs, Bear, who I had not chosen to adopt from a mechanical compound in Veracruz in Victoria, but when I left that compound after 13 days there, Bear followed me and became part of our family, me and Magic. I have a video up now that shows Bear and Magic in that compound field. I tell elsewhere the story about losing the two of them, but basically I arrived in El Diamante, towed in there from the side of the road after my car had broken down, in rough shape. My first 3 months in Mexico had been very chaotic, culture shock. Even though I was thrilled to be in Mexico, culture shock, language shock. My Spanish was terrible back then. I really could not communicate with people, which I basically can now, partly from my 3 months in El Diamante and talking to a lot of people there, none of whom spoke much English. It's a very, El Diamante, the diamond, I considered a spiritual diamond. It's a place where, like, it's an unwritten rule that you greet everybody. People are so sweet, so spiritual. Most of them are either Catholic or many more of them Pentecostal. And I got to discover the deep spiritual nature of these Pentecostal folks, many of whom said to me things like, when I would say, well, I'm not really a Jesus follower, I'm a lover of Jesus, they'd say, it doesn't matter. Love of God, that's all that counts. Doesn't matter whether you're Catholic or Pentecostal or which branch of Pentecostal, just love God. And they did. They really did. They were spectacular. Sweet, gentle Mexican people. None of whom were making much money. There's a big carretera that runs through there, the major eastern road that leads from Matamoros and other cities up there down to Central America, and lots of cars, disabled cars in transit to be sold in Central America, huge trucks. It's a real major thoroughfare, noisy as hell. But people just got used to it. And the adults in El Diamante, their stance was, why would anybody leave this town? It's perfect. But many of the young people were breaking out and going elsewhere. I got to know the O'Reilly family. My first day there, I showed up at their restaurant. It's 3 nuclear families, a big extended family that together ran the restaurant. Lovely open-air restaurant. What a place. One of the two big downsides of El Diamante. One is small mindset. People who only really know that pueblo. Even my hosts, 2 of them had spent a lot of time in Houston in their formative years, but had been there a long time and really feared the outside world. They would say, even of little Vega de Alator, dangerous there. No, it wasn't at all. And Martinez, the 60,000 person city that I loved going to, oh, it's so dangerous there, so many mal hombres. and absolutely not the case. Complete paranoia. And I adopted the notion that the reason sweet, spiritual, humble people in Mexico have irrational fears about all the mal hombres out there, a lot of bad men out there, is because of their religion. If they have a God that is fearsome, who will smite you, a God that could hate you if you do something bad enough, that gets carried over into a fear of the outside world, that bad things can happen out there. If even God could hate you. So that was one of them. The other one was that it's true of much of Mexico that dogs are neglected, ignored, not valued. They're free, which is pretty great, and some of them turn out to be amazing dogs, but tragically unnurtured. There were a handful of dogs who had a person, some of whom seemed really wonderful, but just a handful. There were three. I had just tragically lost two important dogs, and I had essentially adopted three spectacular street dogs, each of whom had a place to sleep at night, but none of whom were touched. Nobody ever touched a dog in public in that town. People who had a personal dog may have acaricios, is to pet a dog. They all had different reasons. Germs, bugs. One tried to bite me once. But no dog would be touched. So those three dogs, when they discovered I would lavish petting on them and get them food, because none of them was eating very well, they bonded incredibly with me, and they were each spectacular dogs. Little Mufasa slept inside the restaurant where I hung out. Jason, big black dog, gorgeous, noble, tough, but definitely the dominant dog, who I thought was indomitable till I found out he had more than met his match, and slept out in front of the tienda across the street. And Easy, those other two dogs already had a name, but Easy did not have a name. I gave her the name Easy, or Facile in Spanish, because she decided to come after me, and looked seeking love. Just decided, I don't know, I think there's something about this guy. And I had a hard time walking because Easy just was underfoot all the time, wanting love. And I would take them for long walks, and the countryside was spectacular and gorgeous and so healing for me. So before it got hot, because it was a super hot summer, not as hot as Texas, 10 degrees cooler than Texas, but hot, we'd go for very long walks. On one of those walks, another big black dog, taller and leaner than Jason, younger, wanted to come along. And the three resisted, but he seemed fine. And so he essentially became kind of a part of our pack and went for several walks with us, slept under my van in the back of the hotel. There was a restaurant and hotel, and my van was back there being worked on for 3 months. They kept discovering more problems. It ended up with a total engine replacement, which was incredibly expensive. Well, that new big black dog out in front of the restaurant, I had bought croquetas, kibble for the dogs, and then put out two bowls. They both got eaten quickly. While I was reaching to fill one of them, the other one still had a little bit of croquetas in it, and a fight broke out between that new dog and one of our dogs over what kibble was in there, and he revealed himself to be a killer dog, who, the fight that broke out, I finally ended it by landing a toe on his nose. A soft toe shoe, not enough to hurt him, but it stopped him. But it sure looked like he would not stop until he had killed the dog that he was mad at. And that happened twice more. 2 more horrendous fights. In one of them, I grabbed one of the big, heavy wooden chairs in the restaurant and went running out of the restaurant. to hit him with it. And little Sarah, who was horrified by my craziness and loved me a lot, but her classic line was, "No, John, no, John." So there I go with the chair, and she's yelling, "No, John, not you're going to get hurt, but you're going to hurt our chair." So it became clear he kept coming back, and he had learned the back way to come back around when we chased him away. And nobody there had a gun, and they were all too nonviolent to possibly kill a dog. And when I announced to them, "I'm going to be leaving here soon when my car is ready, I'm going to kill that dog before I leave. I have to. Because if I leave him here, he's going to kill our dogs," they were absolutely horrified. Well, the final fight broke out. For some reason, it was only Mufasa, the smallest of the dogs, corgi-looking dog. Good fighter and a noble, wow, what a will. When he wanted something, he was going to get it. He was an astonishing dog and much beloved around the restaurant, even though nobody would touch him, and they'd periodically run them out quite rudely. A couple people were quite rude in the way they did it. I had actually been in a real Mexican standoff with Don Miguel, the grandfather, because he only loved one dog that was tied up in the back forever because he had bitten somebody once. That was the only dog he loved, and he hated all other dogs. And I kept letting the dogs come in with me, and I'd give them treats. He was really angry about it, and we were in a real standoff. So that last fight was in the backyard. Just Mufasa, who was no match for that dog at all, so ferocious. And he was going to die. I hit the big dog with a big rock, and he just growled and started to come at me. And I was in danger. I'd have been in trouble. Mufasa bit him on the ass, and when he turned, I had taken a couple of steps. I did a thing I had rehearsed in my sleep, I guess, the night before. I had a little flimsy fish filleting knife that I bought for $7 on South Padre Island and used as my kitchen knife. I took 3 sideways steps, grabbed that knife. When Mufasa bit him on the ass, he turned to Mufasa, and I stabbed him between the shoulder blades and was standing there holding just the shank of the knife and did not know for 3 days if it had gone in or bounced off. He ran off. And 3 days later, when I said to Alia, my best friend around the restaurant, something about, "I'm worried about that dog still coming back," she says, "That dog no longer exists." He had been found later that day, bled to death on the side of the road. Well, that shook me up. I took the Bodhisattva pledge. I did. I will not rest until all living beings are at peace. And I knew that Spirit was telling me, "This is your job, man. You thought it was courageous to punch the racist who was molesting your black friend? Well, that was for you at the time. This was more, because this was super dangerous, and totally violating so many things that you thought that were rules for you, but I learned there's no such thing as rules. It's what has the most love. And protecting those 3 dogs and people, because he clearly would attack a person if provoked. That trumped it. I had to do what Spirit told me to do, and I proved that I would. I was shaken up like, holy shit, we're in a whole new terrain here. And the people around the restaurant were grateful. They weren't mad at me for doing it all. They were enormously relieved. And Don Miguel developed a new respect for me. He liked me after that. We were buds all over again like we had been at the beginning. It's a good story. I'm proud of it. Who the hell am I? No, there goes that boat. Now. That's a good way to take us out to the break. But the punchline for me is, God, well, what is it you have in store for me? You just keep growing me, and I absolutely don't recognize myself, and certainly my old friends don't recognize me. Shit. Okay, bye.